Hi, and welcome back to Short-Term Rentals Unpacked. In the last episode, we looked at regulation and what's changing across the UK and the EU. But today we're shifting gears a bit because beyond regulation and supply growth, there's something else happening in short-term rentals. Influence is evolving. Who gets heard, who shapes the narrative, and who sets the tone? And that's what we're unpacking today. So it is a pleasure to be joined by Humphrey Bolwes, founder and CEO of Truvi, to talk about TruVisionaries, what it is, why it exists, and what it says about where the industry is right now. Humphrey, it's a pleasure to have you come on the podcast. I just wanted to ask, just before we kind of get into the main questions I prepared for you, this must have been a pretty big week for you, right? How's it actually felt from your side?
Ben, well, look, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's been phenomenal. The best thing about this project is how much fun it's been to put together. Like, there's work and there's work, and this is something that I have positively looked forward to every day to jump out of bed, discuss it with the team, execute little bits and pieces of the project. And I just love the breadth that has been brought into it.
Yeah.
From getting the family involved to interviewing Steve Schwab to kind of seeing Leo, who actually has some real acting pedigree, come through. The whole thing has been a joy to put together from start to finish.
Amazing. Well, I've really enjoyed watching it, like the kind of build up to and then to actually being released. I think it's been amazing to watch. And you guys have been so creative about how you've gone about doing it, which I think has been a real breath of fresh air. But yes, so shall we get into it?
Let's
For
do it.
anyone who hasn't actually seen it and somehow has just been off socials for the last week or so, what is TruVisionaries?
So it's kind of the top-ish 50 voices of not of some of the most influential, authentic, and most importantly, under-recognized people shaping conversations in short-term rentals. It's not about being the loudest, not about being the most followed. It's about being the most genuinely valuable. So, the people whose thinking actually moves the industry forward, even when the algorithm doesn't reward them for it.
Nice, nice. I love that. And kind of when you set out to create the TruVisionaries, has it turned out pretty much the same as what you originally thought it would, or has it kind of changed a bit along the way?
Um, I I think it's changed a little bit. Look, we created it a little bit out of frustration. Like
Okay.
frustration that the same handful of names kept appearing on panels, in podcasts, in the press, while hundreds of people are just doing extraordinary work, but remaining invisible to the wider industry. And, social media platforms, much like the booking platforms, they tend to amplify whoever already has an audience, not necessarily whoever has the most to say. So we wanted to try and cut through that. And what, look, I guess, Ben, what I was trying to create was threefold, okay?
Uh-huh.
First, I really wanted a genuine, useful resource, a list that someone new to the industry or a seasoned operator looking to expand their thinking could actually find voices worth following.
Okay.
Second, I wanted a moment of recognition for people who rarely receive it. So I know in my own experience how sustaining it can be when someone says, what you're doing matters. And I also know how, absolutely rare that is. And then third, I wanted a statement about the kind of company Truvi is, because we're not here to extract value from this industry. We're here to invest in it. And this was our way of being able to give back and raise up the people who we think are really worth listening to in the short-term rental industry.
Nice. Fantastic. Um, so once it went live, obviously there was quite a reaction, I think it's fair to say. What has that response told you about where the short-term rental industry is right now?
Honestly, like, it's kind of told me that the industry is hungry for something it hasn't quite been able to name yet. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think the reaction, it wasn't just positive, okay? It was really quite emotional. So people who were included didn't just say thank you. They said things like, I needed this and I didn't realize anyone was paying attention. Like, that's just not the response you get when someone wins a revenue award or
Yeah.
gets a platform integration announcement. Like, that's the response of people who've been working hard in relative isolation, sort of wondering whether they're actually doing anything that matters beyond anyone, with their own portfolio. Now, look, there's two things, okay, about what I think this says to us about where the industry is right now. First, there's an enormous amount of genuine talent and expertise that is going unrecognized and therefore underutilized. And the SDR industry has professionalized faster than its recognition infrastructure has kept up. The operators, educators, and commentators doing the most important work are often the least visible. And that's a problem because it means the loudest voices aren't always the most valuable ones. Second, and probably more importantly, it's told me that the industry is ready to look inward. So, for years, the conversation in short term rentals has been dominated by the platforms, their algorithm changes, their policy updates, their fee structures. The reaction to the top 50, like, it just suggests that operators and industry participants are increasingly interested in building something that belongs to them, a community, a canyon of knowledge, like a sense of shared identity that doesn't depend on being an Airbnb superhost or their
Yeah.
next announcement to feel relevant. And that is so exciting for the industry. Like, the response to this list felt like confirmation that the industry is starting to feel that they are ready to start taking ownership of their industry rather than simply borrowing it from Airbnb.
Yeah. And I'd love it if we could see that happen, right? I love it in 2026. Obviously, other than TruVisionaries, the main conversation I think has not been AI. It has been, how do we get more direct bookings? How do we not circumvent but drive more traffic to our direct booking websites rather than through Airbnb, or any kind of third party OTA? And I think this list is an incredible list of people who seem to be cracking that code. From looking at the list, were there names on there of people that you personally hadn't heard of? Is there anyone on that list where you thought, "Well, these this person's going to be one of the next big kind of movers and shakers in the short-term rental world," or anyone kind of stand out to you in that respect?
Yeah, totally. Like, I'd certainly heard of the majority, but there was a really significant minority who I'd never come across before. Like,
Yeah.
this project has been an education piece for me, for sure. And I guess the thing which is so exciting is that being able to help give these people the spotlight that they deserve has really contributed to our understanding of how the industry works as well. And it's by rolling up the sleeves and doing some of the work that you really understand how many amazing people are there and the types of work that they're doing.
Yeah, completely, completely. I've always thought that about our industry. So I love that you've done this personally. So I guess if you step back from it, how does this project reflect on your own journey building Truvi?
Do you know what? The again, I can say the word honest again, you have to edit that out. The honest thing is that it probably in more ways than I initially realized when we launched it. So you know what it's like starting a business. Like, building Truvi has required an almost stubborn belief that the work matters, even when the external signals weren't always confirming that.
Hmm.
We rebranded from Superhog to Truvi,
Yeah,
whilst simultaneously restructuring the business and navigating the loss of Andrew, my co-founder.
yeah,
Um, there were long stretches when, you know, we would where we were doing genuinely important work, trying to build like better risk management infrastructure for operators without much fanfare. And
Yeah.
you learn in those moments that conviction has to be self-sustaining because the recognition isn't always coming. And the top 50 voices came pretty directly from that experience. I knew there were hundreds of people in this industry in that position who do important work, valuable industry shaping work without a stage or an audience, proportionate to their contribution. So we wanted to build the list I wished I had, and that list that had existed during our hardest periods. The kind of, external signals that says what you're doing is seen and it matters. And I think there's probably a deeper parallel when you think about it, because Truvi was built on the belief that operators deserve independence, that the people doing the real work in short-term rentals shouldn't be structurally dependent on platforms that don't have their interests at heart. And the top 50 voices, you know, it, it's the same arguments that apply to recognition. Why should visibility in this industry be determined by an algorithm built by a platform with its own commercial interests? Why should the most followed automatically be the most influential? So we wanted to build something that returned the power to the community itself. So in that sense, I guess like the project isn't separate from Truvi. It's kind of like an expression of it. Same values with a slightly different medium.
Nice. I absolutely love that. I mean, I totally agree. And I think the other thing as well that you've done is I'm excited for a short stay summit as well, because I feel like what you've done is connected a load of people that wouldn't have been connected before. And realistically, the next time all these people are going to meet in person will probably be the short stay summit, right? So I think that's also a really exciting thing that you've done. Um,
I thought you were going to mention the calendar there, Ben, and whether or not there would be a short, a True Visionaries calendar available.
well, maybe, who knows, right? um, but I guess kind of on that, if we fast forward a little bit to maybe a few years in the future, is this an annual thing that we'll see happening every year?
I would love it to be. I mean, look,
Yeah,
1 year in the short-term rental industry is a long time,
yeah,
and it is way long enough for the next wave of professionalization to be underway, and long enough for the platform dependency conversation to have reached a genuine tipping point. And, my prediction is that actually the next cohort of important voices, won't primarily be talking about optimizing within the existing platform ecosystem. They'll be the people who figured out how to build genuinely independent businesses, so operators with a strong direct booking engines and property managers with their own brand equity, the educators who build communities rather than just audiences. And, we can already see the conversation is shifting in that direction.
yeah,
And,
definitely.
you know, the thing I love about the True Visionaries is it's about the unsung heroes. And therefore, you're always going to be introducing a new cohort of individuals to the industry, and therefore that is just going to show the depth and the talent. And I think, look, I would put my hand up. I got a couple of messages obviously from people around about the industry, and some of them gave some pretty constructive feedback. The lack of geographical diversity on the list, and
Yeah,
part of that is probably our fault, but it's also we decided that people had to be nominated, so we didn't need to find a way to get into these new markets, whether it is Latin America or Southeast Asia or the Middle East, like, or we also need the community to help us step up, the project to step up, to reach, where the disruption, where the professionalization is happening, in order to create as brilliant and relevant a list as possible.
Yeah, and I think that makes total sense, because presumably your geographical locations was based on where your current client base is and your knowledge is, right? So,
Well, kind of like where our current reach is.
yeah,
Um, but look, what's not going to change is what makes a true voice worth following. So, generosity with knowledge, willingness to say difficult things, a genuine commitment to making the industry better rather than just making themselves more visible. The media might evolve, whatever comes after LinkedIn and podcasts, but the substance that matters, that's going to stay the same.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's such a perfect point to kind of wrap this up on. Look, Humphrey, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for your time. And I just think it's fascinating just to see how the short-term rental industry is shifting, and generally who's shaping the next phase of the industry and where that might go. And I think obviously you guys are at the leading edge of that, which is amazing. And if you've enjoyed this episode of Short-Term Rental Unpacked, please make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.